Welcome to Gumball Love. I'm Melissa Ledger, professional relationship coach, creator of Gumball Love and the Back to You Academy. If you're ready to stop the cycle of toxic men, get through the breakup once and for all, and finally get back to you, you are in the right place. This journey is about healing your heart, and you are encouraged to take the pace that is just right for you. In the process, you will build a foundation of confidence and strength that will make you unshakable, I promise. So get ready to level up your mindset and your lifestyle as you awaken the seeds of greatness just waiting to burst into full bloom. Let's do this. Welcome back to another episode of Gumball Love. I'm your host, Melissa Ledger. All right, today we're going to talk about ghosting, because what in the F is actually going on with so many people doing this? Why is it becoming more common? A lot of my girls and my coaching clients are asking me, Melissa, is this becoming more common? What's happening? Why are so many guys doing this? And so I Googled a few things just to see, like, what are other people saying? I know what I think, but I wanted to just see what other people were saying. And it's always interesting. You always want to keep your options open. Even when I go to Sephora, I always ask, even though I think I know which product I want, I'm like, hey, what do you think I should use? And it's amazing. You always learn something because they're a makeup artist. They sit in that environment and you might end up buying something different because you just take time to listen to what other people have to say that are in that industry. So I'm constantly obsessing and learning and looking at what other psychologists are saying and people that are studying all these different aspects. One person says ghosting usually reflects immaturity and psychological fragility on the part of the ghoster. And I love that. And that is clinical psychologist Ramani Durvasula. Hopefully I said that correctly. But I love that it puts the ownership on the ghoster, because we always think it's something we're doing. Oh, he wouldn't ghost if, and then fill in the blank. And oh, we had a great time and he spent time with me and now he's choosing not to spend time with me. So why? And then we obsess over the why and we beat ourselves up, and then we go into the spiral. And that spiral takes you down. If you just imagine yourself going down a spiral staircase, even if you just go down one level, now you're looking at yourself differently than you were before this ghoster. And you're questioning because you assume it's you. This is why and it's so hard. It's very hurtful because you like them. And you know, or you think, like, I know, I mean, was he faking it? You know what I mean? You're like thinking back through the date, like, okay, well, we had dinner and we were laughing and maybe there was a kiss or he held your hand or, you know, he seems to enjoy himself. And then what is going on? So go back to that quote. Ghosting usually reflects immaturity and the psychological fragility of the ghoster. So I want you to picture a guy, and look, we've all done it too, where we've gotten ready for a date. We look good on the outside, hair, makeup done, cute outfit, cute shoes, everything's put together. And you show up for the date, you give that big smile. Hey, nice to meet you. How are you? How are things going? Did you find the place okay? And ooh, the menu, and you sit down and you start chatting and you're smiling, and inside, you might be thinking, I don't know, does he like me? Is my hair weird? Or do I have lipstick on my teeth? But he doesn't know you're thinking these things. You know, we know what's going on in our mind, but they don't, right? So I want you to keep in mind, you also don't know what's going on in his mind. We don't know where people are in their life. They've written a profile, which basically could be anything, right? So everyone could be lying at any point. You don't know what's actually going on in this person's life. Maybe they got fired. Maybe they aren't even working right now. Maybe they feel like they're about to get fired. Maybe they are feeling lost. Maybe they are still heartbroken over their ex, and they're still processing those feelings, yet they're out on a date and they're having a good time, yet it's like they can't emotionally show up. They can't get there because they're stuck somewhere else. So they can smile, they can go through the motions, but the reality is they're sitting there knowing there's no way I am ready. I can't give this person what they need. They're going to expect things from me I can't give them. And so as much as they would love to give it a try, they're sitting there like, I know that this will fail and I can't stand the idea of failure. And so I'm going to disappear. Now, sometimes when they disappear, we chase them. We're like, hey, like you had such a good time. So you're like, hey, how are you? Had a really good time. How are things? And then you get that like either no response, which is totally sucks, or you get that, yeah, good to see you, or it was nice meeting you. And you're like, okay, weird. What is that? Because it doesn't match the experience that you had. So yeah, I'm sure people show up and fake it on dates, and the reason they're not going out with us again is because they're just not interested. I mean, that's always a possibility, right? But I think in these cases where there's something more, the reason ghosting becomes agonizing is because you felt something. You felt a connection. You felt something more than the average date. And when that person disappears, it just makes you stop and overanalyze everything because you had hope in that moment. However, here's another important thing. I'm just looking at all the kind of like the highlight reel on, if I just Google, I Googled, why is ghosting so common? And I don't even know who said this. You know how it just kind of gives you a list of things. It says, it shows you have no respect for another person's feelings. It says that you are inconsiderate and don't care much about the impact or the consequences of your actions. It's easier than breaking up, but it also shows you have no character when you choose easy over integrity. Ooh. So that's an angry opinion, right? It's like but when someone doesn't have respect for other people's feelings, it means they don't respect themselves. So, and when we don't respect ourselves, we don't love ourselves. And I know I've said this like 100 million times, but it's such an important thing when somebody shows up and then disappears with no explanation. It is a huge indication of where they are. And so when they disappear, you want to be like, ooh, okay, I wasn't expecting that, but now that I'm seeing this behavior, it is an indicator of all of these other things. So 1, no self-respect, no self-esteem, no self-worth. Because when I feel worthy and when I feel worthy to show up on the date, I feel worthy for love. I am enjoying myself. This is when I'm coaching my clients and I notice that there's this urgency for dating and there's this like rush to make a result happen. And I'm so frustrated and I just want to meet somebody. So every date has this pressure on it. And so then a ghoster becomes such a huge deal because every date is like, oh my gosh, maybe this is the one. And then when it's not, it feels like I've just lost another husband. You know what I mean? It's like, oh my God, he was husband material. And we literally think that. I can't tell you how many times I've coached my girls. I'm like, do you think that maybe you turned this guy into the one because of that one great date? And almost always they're like, yes, I did do that. And I've done it too, because you see and you feel a lot on that first date. And a lot of things click. I mean, when the chemistry is there, it's there and it's undeniable. And so then when it's kind of ripped away from you, it's very jarring, and I'm trying to think of a different word, but it just feels so like that. It's a gut punch. I can't think of a better word, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like, and then you can know all these things like, oh, if he doesn't have any self-worth, he doesn't have any self-respect, but then you're like, why? What's going on with this guy? And so what I would do is I would pursue that guy, because I would think that I would know, okay, he's a good guy. I saw what I saw. And then I would try to convince him that he is good enough, because I might get a little more information out of him. Like, let me give you an example. So guy ghosts, and then you pursue and you're like, hey, I had a really good time. I thought you did too. Like, have you ever done this where you realize, okay, you're going to ghost me. Like I thought I was going to hear from you. We had a great time. Is everything okay? And then sometimes you get that response of like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know if this is the right time, or I don't feel like I'm going to be enough for you. You get one of those. I don't know if I'm ready. You seem really great, but insert excuse. And then I would say things like, no, I mean, you are what I'm looking for. I was really attracted to you. I really enjoy blah, blah, blah. And, would love to hang out again. And sometimes I would get them re-engaged. But each time I was doing this, I was putting myself in this position where I had to sell him on us, sell him on continuing. And then he got to all of a sudden dictate the pace, and his hesitancy became okay, because now he's like, well, okay, yeah, I guess I can, yeah, let's, sure. And then the dates became like coming over versus going out, and not even about sex, just about hanging out. Then all of a sudden it was like lazy dating, because now we're in this limbo, and I would feel like, oh my God, I have time with this guy. So I'm going to get to the bottom of this. And then he would be affectionate, or, you'd have these amazing makeouts or whatever. And then it's like, okay, see, there is something here. And then I would wait, like, okay, is he going to get excited now? Because, look what's here. Don't you see what's here? And sometimes they'd be like, yes, but there was something holding him back. And so it would start to make me sad, and I would start to feel like, why can't I do enough for you? What is it that I need to do? And then that's when I would sit down with girlfriends and I would talk through it, and I would try to figure out, okay, what's going on in his life that is causing him to be this way? Because I feel like he's interested, but then all of a sudden I don't hear from him. And then in the days I wouldn't hear from him, I would create a story of why. And then I would, I'd almost create the movie scene in my head where I would mope around and I would be sad that I wasn't hearing from him. And then there he would be. Hey, how are you? What you been up to? Thinking about you. And then I was like, so all of a sudden, one great date could be followed by, I don't know, a dozen or so interactions with a guy half awake, almost ready to run out the door at any sudden movement, and me being scared to do anything drastic. And in one date where he engages a little bit, yet isn't fully present, my entire life would be focused on this guy, and the fantasy I would create of him finally realizing what we had, what we could be, what we could become, and I would become fixated on it. And going off of such little interaction, such little information, I wouldn't really know the whole picture. And then usually when I would finally find out the whole picture, I would realize, and with some guys over the years, I mean, it would be like a year later where you're dating, but you're never really officially a thing. And it's like always on and off, and it's intense, and then he's pulling away again. And so it would be this limbo period, but I did not understand. And the reason I show up for you consistently is because I want you to see in these moments when we have one date or a few dates and it seems great and then he ghosts, he's disappearing. Yes, it's hurtful. Yes, it is rejection, right? But is it a rejection of you or is it a rejection of them to themselves? It's usually them rejecting themselves. It's him saying, I am not good enough. I'm not ready. This is going to fail. Ultimately, there's a million excuses that he can think about when he has low self-esteem or low self-worth. But ultimately, they're looking at it and saying, I'm going to fail at this. And that failure sitting there as this impending doom is what is going to then make him bolt on a dime. And that's why you're not hearing from him for days, weeks, months. I mean, have you ever had a guy come back after years of ghosting, and then give some lame thing? And just like I talked about in the, when he comes back, just in a previous 2 podcasts ago, when he comes back, what does that mean? So you can look at that podcast as the other side of it. Like, okay, now he's back, but it's still lame. So that's a whole other episode you can learn. But in this ghosting period, this is where the whole relationship, well, it's not even a relationship. It's basically where you were on a date together getting to know each other. And then when he decided to, it's almost like he gets up from the table and he goes and stands outside. And then you're sitting there waiting for him to come back. This is like, the kind of just an analogy of the ghosting. So now you're sitting at the table and you're waiting for him to come back. And if you are in a good place, you sit there and you're like, well, I don't know. I don't know what happened, but I'm going to go home. Or you can go outside and try to convince him to come back in and sit at the table. You know what I mean? Like, you can decide, okay, if you're going to leave dinner, like, just imagine if he left dinner, like if the ghosting happened in the middle of an event and then and he went somewhere else and you could try to convince him. That's kind of what we're doing. He's left the dinner, he's left the relationship, and I know it's not even sometimes a relationship, but he's departed from the interaction, and now I can try to convince him. But in that convincing, that is where you start to give the gumballs. Here, I'm going to convince you everything's okay. Come back. It's going to be fine. I really do like you. So just those things, like, you can start to pity him. Let me feel sorry for you. Let me convince you. That's the other gumball. So the ghosting is a validation prompt. I'm going to ghost you and I'm going to sit in pity so that you chase me. So you get the chase me gumball guy. You get, I'm sorry, I don't want to say the chase me gumball guy. I need to quit saying that because we have all these flavors branded, but every gumball guy has a mixture of flavors of attention that he prompts you for. He puts in that quarter. Validate me by giving me sex. Validate me by chasing me. Some guys, I had a guy who said, when you were texting me and I was ignoring you, that's when I was building the confidence to actually call you back. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I would just sit there and watch the texts come in, and then it would make me see how much you cared about me. And so after enough time, I got the confidence to reach out to you again. And so then I just pictured myself like, wow, there I was, like working, getting no response. And that's what he needed for me to fill him up. And so the confidence was coming from me, not from him. So that's where I know this gumball concept can seem a little odd, but I want you to just always be thinking about that. Is this a transaction? The moment someone ghosts, it means that if they don't come back on their own and they are not accountable, usually the ghoster comes back with some type of condition. Like, I'm coming back, but I'm going to say things like, I don't want anything serious. So maybe he wants, that's the validation prompt for, I want sex and I want you to chase me because I need to be validated physically, because I don't feel great about myself physically. I don't feel sexy, so I need that validation. And then I need you to chase me so I feel desired, so I feel like I'm in demand. And that's why a lot of these guys have multiple women. And they're ghosting, kind of, but this is all part of the way that they structure their Rolodex of all these different girls reaching out to them. And some are providing different flavors. Some are the ones that are just going to give the sexy selfies. And that's what excites him. So he'll give that girl the validation quarter prompt. Like, I'm going to prompt you. This is the flavor of attention that's going to work for me. And then you give it and you get a response. But the response is the high that he got from the gumball you gave him. So he's like, is he saying, give me sex, give me pity? I don't know, convince me, work for it. Just like I would do, text and text and text and text. And I was working for it. Like, I care about you and I think you're a great person and we had so much fun together and blah, whatever I was saying. I don't even remember. This was so many years ago, but I just know, I know myself and I know that I would think if I pour my heart out, if I really show this person how I feel and I let myself be vulnerable. I would take that vulnerability thing to the extreme and it'd really just be like, okay, I'm going to tell you. And then I would get a really nice response sometimes. And then it was like, see, this is great. Let's just enjoy this. I didn't realize, they can enjoy it right in the high of that moment. But when I am not producing the gumball that he wants, or sometimes you can even try to give them a gumball, but they can't get high off of that one right now. They need something different. And so you start to feel like, okay, nothing works. He's not really that into me. I don't know what I did wrong. Like, what am I, like all of those thoughts start to happen because this person is intermittently ghosting. So like I said before, I think this hits us the hardest when we have our hopes so high in each interaction. So I want you to really look at, if you're dating right now, how do you feel right now? Are you hoping so badly that you meet that person and every time there's potential, you get really excited and then you over-glamorize, you look at his profile, you save his pictures to your phone so you can look at them without showing that you're on his dating profile over and over again. Yes, I know you. I've done all these things. It's like, oh my God, he's so cute. And then you're like, you get it all built up. This is why my favorite song is by Michael Bublé, where it's, I talk myself in, I talk myself out, I get all worked up and then I left myself down. I try so very hard not to lose it. And then he goes, I came up with a million excuses. I thought of every single possibility. And then the chorus is all in, I know someday it'll all work out. I should just play the song so you can hear it.
Talk myself in, I talk myself out. I get all worked up, then I let myself down. I tried so very hard not to lose it. I came up with a million excuses. I thought of every possibility.
So hopefully you know the song, I Just Haven't Met You Yet. And this is what I would talk myself in, talk myself up, talk myself in, talk myself out, get all worked up and let myself down. Like, I would do this over and over again. And look, I think that there are just parts of ourselves that we just need to embrace, and we just need to know, like, this is kind of who I am. I might just do this because that was the enthusiastic part of me that wanted to believe. And I was a little caught up in the romance part, but I didn't want to be bitter and I didn't want to give up. And so I would think, well, so what if I'm a little excited about this date or whatever? I should be excited. And I do want you to be excited, but I want you to be excited in a way that says, I'm going to show up and I'm going to have a great time. And the person that's right for me, it's just going to flow. It's going to be natural. I'm not going to have to question it. And if it flows and it's natural and that person doesn't show up later, they are not meant for you. Okay? They are not meant for you, or they're not meant for you right now. That person might come back. And I have to say that because my guy did come back, but it was years later and we both had done a tremendous amount of work. And I've told this story a million times, but it's just like, it's so obvious to us now why when we met, had we tried to date each other then, we probably wouldn't be together. But when we came back together after we had done all this work on ourselves, and it wasn't that I was a broken person when I met him on my side, and I'll let him tell his side of the story. But on my side, I had just barely gotten to New York. I had barely experienced knowing who I was. And so I know myself, and I would have completely lost myself in him because he was everything I wanted. And it was like, I was so smitten that I know I would have lost myself. But then the second time we connected, I was not in that place. And like I said before, I was grounded, and then I had built gumball love to a point too where I wasn't going to let somebody derail me. And it turns out when it is the right person, you don't have to think about all these things. It's not going to be like, I'm coaching a client right now. She just did my 4-part mini series. The Level Up for Love, I think, is what we're calling it. It's just something that it's like a work in progress right now as I'm working with this brand new quiz that we're developing. And I'll get to that in a second. But she started seeing this guy. We were talking about a gumball guy, and she started seeing this guy, this new guy. And so far, it's like, it's so easy. And she's like, Melissa, he's just nice, and we talk and we go to dinner, and they just enjoy each other's company. And this is where we're confused when we've dated gumball guys. Like, okay, is this something where's the red flag? There just won't be any. However, he's not going to be a drama king either. And he's not going to ghost. He's not going to disappear. He's going to be consistent. This is the one thing that with Ian, I relied on so heavily. It was like, a lot of our first almost year of our relationship was long distance. And I remember thinking, wow, he shows up every single day. Every single day he calls, every single day he texts, every single day he's looking at what's going on with coronavirus. When I was in New York City and the pandemic was hitting Manhattan so hard and it was so scary, and it was just like every day, that consistency was so important because I know I have anxious attachment. So an anxious attachment person has to have a consistent partner, and eventually, but you need to be aware that you have the anxious attachment so that you can also do the work yourself. So if you have anxious attachment disorder and you're dating somebody who's ghosting, it feeds right into what you're used to. So a lot of times we're pursuing ghosters because this is what we do. We already are anxious about attachment. And so we naturally will pursue people that are not coming toward us. We'll pursue people that we'll chase when we shouldn't be chasing. And so I want you to maybe thank the ghoster a little bit, because if they ghost and they're just gone, you don't have to deal with any of it. It's kind of nice. Like, okay, I guess he's just gone. And I remember thinking too, like, okay, well, what am I going to do if this guy randomly comes back? When you're like, okay, he's been gone for now it has reached the point of awkwardness of you've disappeared, you haven't responded to text. So when he comes back, he has to apologize. There has to be a reason or what's something that's going on because now you're in that awkward phase. And so I would think, what is it that he can say at this point to change the dynamic? Because we went on a great date or two or whatever was good is now tainted. And is that something he can recover? What is the thing he can say that can turn this around? And I'm not saying there is nothing, but there's really not a good excuse. Like a lot of guys that go on a date and then they'll say, I'm not over my ex, or my ex came back into the picture and we're working through some things. That is somebody you go away from. Like, okay, that you're trying to date, but you're still caught up with somebody else. They're not available. And I wish I could have, like a lot of times I would hang in and be like, okay, well, are you guys, then you're all of a sudden you're in their relationship and you're talking to them about it. And then you're not the priority. So a ghoster is saying right now, I cannot make myself a priority. Therefore, I cannot make you a priority. I always want you to put the ownership on the ghoster because they did enough to show up to take your time. Yet now they're going to disappear and now waste your time. And you have to decide, how much time does this guy get? In my head, in my heart, in my scrolling into his profile, analyzing every picture, trying to figure out who has he dated in the past? What is he interested in? What is he doing right now? Oh my God, he's posting something. And then you're like annoyed with their story because it's like, oh, so you're just out having lunch and not even thinking about texting me, like whatever they're doing. It's so annoying. Like, oh, so that's what you're doing. And you're ignoring me while you're doing it. And it's so hurtful because you're just waiting for them to respond and they don't. And so that's when that shift goes into effect, where we depart from our own lives and we start focusing on them and what they're doing and why. That's when the whole thing goes out of balance. That's when you don't have a partner. That's when you don't have somebody that's meeting you. And look, relationships are not always easy. And so we have to be able to meet each other. I don't want to say even halfway. Like a lot of times, I notice this all the time in my own relationship where I think, wow, he totally took over for me today where I couldn't do it all. He picked up. And then some days I do that for him, where sometimes it's just doing an extra load of laundry or finding the things that they're going to run around the house to look for, and you get those things ready for them. Or Ian gets all of our hot work stuff ready to go. So like when I'm done working, it's like the car is packed and it's loaded. And so all I have to do is put my workout outfit on and go out the door. And it's just always thinking of each other. And when you have somebody that's can completely emotionally and physically disappear, it's such a bigger problem. So I want you to just know that, yes, this is probably, one of the articles said people ghost because they can. Technology makes it easy. It's easy to hide because a lot of our communication is through electronic communication, texting, and it's mainly texting. So much communication is happening through texting. And so there's no accountability, especially if you've never met them. Sometimes you have these great conversations and you're trying to get to that point where they ask you on a date. And then you're like, are they ever going to ask me on a date? That's when I want you to start going, okay, this guy he's one of those guys that is afraid. And that fear, if someone is that afraid, they're not going to be able to show up and connect with you on a deeper level that's required. I just want you, it's almost like if a relationship was like a 26-mile marathon and you need to find a partner that can run that at that level. When we're talking to a ghoster, we're literally talking to the person who's not worked out in 10 years and is eating Cheetos in their basement, playing video games. Although I love Cheetos. And I love video games actually, but I'm not playing them in my basement, not eating Cheetos. I was like, wait, I love those things. But you know what I mean? Like that person is not ready to run a marathon. And so, but we're talking to them. We're like, hey, so you ready to, you think you can do it, right? Like it'll be fun. We'll be outside, we'll be running, and there's no freaking way. They can't even fathom it. But maybe they signed up. Maybe they have you ever like downloaded the app? Like, I'm going to train for a marathon. And then you got as far as downloading the app. I'm raising my hand. Like, what am I thinking? You were not serious. Like I was playing video games, eating Cheetos. I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? Like, it's like there was no way I was even prepared. But for like a second, I thought maybe. And so that's where they are. And we've got our outfit on, we've got our number on our back, we're ready, we're excited, and we just have no comprehension of where they are versus where we are. So the ghoster is in no position to be in a relationship. They might have potential, but the work that they have to do to be ready is not the work you can do with them. You cannot make somebody ready. You cannot make somebody confident. You cannot make somebody feel worthy. They have to do that on their own. They have to come to the relationship dressed, ready, stretched out, or you know what? Most of the time you meet them when you're already running the marathon, and all of a sudden you look to your right or left and there they are. They're already out there. You don't have to convince them, coach them, coerce them, coax them. You don't have to do any of those things. So I hope this is helpful. Let me know what you think about ghosting. Please feel free to always reach out to me. I want to hear from you more because I'm analyzing what I'm doing with this podcast. So can I ask you a favor? Can I ask you to send me feedback or write a review? And I know it's kind of hard to find. I should do a screen share of where to find reviews because it's kind of clunky on Apple Podcasts of where to find it. But if you can, write a review. Tell me good things. Tell me a little more of this, a little less of that. I can take the constructive criticism. I want constructive criticism because I want to make this show better. I want to grow it. I want to make it something you want to share with your friends. So please help me make the show better by just sharing feedback, aha moments, things that maybe you don't quite understand. Maybe you disagree, or maybe you want to come on the show and have a conversation. If you would like to do a live coaching call on this podcast, I would be open to that. So if you can't afford the coaching, but you're willing to put yourself out there live, I'm willing to do that as well. So I'm going to leave it here. Thank you so much. I hope this helped you think about ghosting in a little bit different way. Until next time, I'll see you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If you want more information or to schedule a private coaching session, or better yet, to join the next Back to You Academy, go to gumballlove.com. If you loved this podcast, I would love for you to share it with your friends. And if you really loved it, a 5-star review is the best compliment you can give. Remember, you are enough, you are right where you should be, and the only thing you have to do is keep going. I'll leave you with my favorite quote by Henry David Thoreau. Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you have imagined. Until next time, I'll see you soon.